shaking. Your boy, Marc Gomez. How does it feel to be live with me? You've seen the show before.
This is amazing.
Episode 53 of the Golden Mic Live. Yeah, 53. Do you know why I've gotten to 53?
Why?
Because you cannot cancel me, Gomez. Nobody can cancel
Your
me.
show.
It's my show. I stop when I want to. Just in case you haven't met me, my name is Marc Cordone, and I've felt imposter syndrome before. And that's why we have today's expert on imposter syndrome, Michelle Gomez, to talk about it. And I'm sure I'm going to have imposter syndrome when I turn off this camera or even points during this interview. So, like, I love the topic of imposter syndrome and success. I'm the founder of Make Money Coaching, the program, but more importantly, I'm a positive psychologist who focuses on two things. Number one, are you feeling happy on a daily basis, y'all? Are you feeling like you're living in gratitude? That's number one. The second thing is, do you feel like you're living in full fulfillment? If you feel like you're living in happiness every day and you're feeling like you're living in full fulfillment, you don't need me. You don't need this coach. Just live your life. So, Michelle, I'm here to ask you, do you feel like you're living your life in full fulfillment and full happiness right now?
Oh gosh, loaded question. But yes, I mean, compared to where I was just 3 to 4 years ago, totally. I am a reformed corporate burnout.
Oh,
and so
wow.
yes. And that's what inspired me to deal with my imposter syndrome and eventually do the work that I had to do to overcome it. And now it's my life's passion to try to help other people, because I know what it's like to show up to work in a burnout perspective, feeling like you're shackled, and then showing up to work feeling fulfilled and happy from a place of gratefulness and just a sense of purpose. And so I can totally relate to what you're saying.
You are absolutely right. And this is the thing. You're an MBA. And so you know when questions are loaded and double barreled. And so, like, you're the first person in 53 episodes to call me out on my double barreled loaded question. So props to you. Now, for those of you watching live or watching on the replay, if you feel like you're living life to full purpose and you're feeling happy about that as you move forward on a daily basis, Gomez, let me see your hands go up. Let me see your hands go up. Can you make them into a heart? Show Michelle and I some hearts. Hit that heart button, friends. If you feel like you're living life to its full capacity and are happy every single day. Yes. Allison Prophet just gave us a double heart.
Hi, Allison.
It's always brighten my day. That's awesome. Ledong, it's good to see you. What is that a circle? Is that a circle smiley face after your name? Marc, what's up? Ledong, say hi to Michelle. Michelle's joining us. She's over in California today. Thank you for those hearts. Now, the thing that sometimes happens in positive psychology is everybody thinks that it's all about like the craps and giggles and the Taco Tuesdays every single day or going to Disneyland every single day, right? No, if you're doing that, you're a total sociopath, if that's the kind of happiness that you're thinking about. Or you're dead. You know, because life is about ups, downs, all arounds. And if you're feeling like you used to be living in purpose and now you're like, holy crap, like my life's mission was to make it to corporate. And all of a sudden now I'm like, wow, my mission is changing and you're not quite sure of where you're at. Or if you're like, man, I just got out of bed, it's raining, I'm not feeling super happy today. That is part of the journey. Your heart is beating just like mine and Michelle's. We got love for you. Love the journey, even though sometimes you might feel a little bit of pain. You don't have to suffer. Oh, I'm seeing you going like this, Michelle. You feeling it?
Yes. Yes. So true.
So Ledong came back and said hello to Michelle. Thank you.
Hi, Ledong.
We're doing some interactive stuff today. We got a fellow alumnus in the house today, Faith Clark.
What's up, Faith?
Say hi to Michelle. It's good to see you, Faith. Hope your writing is going well. So here's the last thing, y'all. You can be having a great day. You could be living in full fulfillment. You could be all over the place. If you are optimistic about the future, that's the fuel that's going to keep you going. that is the fuel that's going to keep you living. And even if we give you a couple smiles today and you don't get too much content, you will get content. If you're feeling optimistic about tomorrow, there's another button down there. There's another button down there. I want you to scroll down if you're feeling optimistic about tomorrow. Michelle, I want you to do this with me. It's part of the alumni group.
Okay.
Come on and give us a big old wow face.
Oh.
Let's see your wow face, Michelle. I'm busting my voice trying to do that, Michelle. So we got Michelle. Michelle is the author of Own Your Brilliance, Overcome Impostor Syndrome for Career Success. She's currently doing some speaking gigs on it. You're also a kick-ass mom. So you've got a lot of things going on, reformed corporate turned career and success coach. So before we even go into all of those roles and how you got there, by the way, Ladong, thank you. It is awesome. You are both full of radiant energy. I love it. We love you. We love you.
Thanks, Ladong.
So before we even go into the specifics, I want to ask you, Michelle, what is your story?
Okay. Well, I am a first generation my parents are from Ecuador. My mom's from Ecuador. My dad's Mexican American. So actually the first generation of our family to be born here, raised here, and go to school here. I'm also the very first in my family to pursue higher education. And I've been married to my husband for this coming month will be 14 years. And we have two beautiful daughters, ages 12 and 8. And so really we both came from not a whole lot, and we've had to figure it out on our own. And it's been great so far, but just through my experience, there's a lot of implications that come for a woman in the workplace, especially when you're in a male-dominated industry, which is where I cut my teeth. I cut my teeth in the logistics and transportation industry. That is a tough industry for women, let me tell you. It's we already have to show up and know our stuff, work harder, and look good doing it. But, when we really want a seat at the table and we want our voices to be heard and our ideas to be listened to and considered, it takes some tact, And so I learned very early on that I had to really know my stuff and position myself in a way that would let people want to listen to me or want to hear me out. Because a lot of times, I can't even count how many times in the room I was the only woman, the only Latina, and the only one who wasn't in their 40s. Yeah. So, I'm already the young one, the Latina one, and I'm the wrong gender. Like, what are you doing here? So I always felt like I crashed the party,
Crashed the party.
Yeah. So I eventually just, started to deal with a lot of negative self-doubt because I realized that I needed a whole lot of validation. I realized that I struggled with these thought patterns that made me feel like I didn't belong, like I wasn't worthy, I wasn't smart enough, but all the credentials, all of my experience, my education, my consistent employee reviews, my performance, my sales efforts, they all rang true to this idea that I am worthy, that I'm here to do this. And I just, wanted this validation from the outside world that it was okay to be brilliant. But, like Brene Brown says in her book, Braving the Wilderness, don't look out into the world and look for signs that you don't belong because you'll always find them. So I realized that the work I needed to do was in here. Yeah. I needed to be okay with myself. I needed to understand that I am qualified. I am talented. I have been blessed with all of these skills, and to not stand in my brilliance was doing a disservice to not only me, but the people that I had been placed to lead. And so when go ahead.
No, keep going. You're in the flow.
Yeah. So when I did that work, I was able to not only show up to my job a lot more effectively, but it impacted my surroundings. It impacted the people that I worked with, the clients and the customers that I worked with, that I continue to work with today. And most of all, it just taught me that it was okay to take care of myself because I thought I had to be a slave, kind of like what you were talking. I watched your interview with Kristen Zerbo yesterday. I'm actually reading her book, Job Joy. So, how she said some of us wear like a badge of honor because we're working so hard. Yeah, that was me. So I just got tired of it. I'm like, okay, what is it? It's not low self-esteem. I'm not depressed. Like I'm a high achiever, but what's my block here? And I finally read the book that everyone knows and loves, Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. And she gave me the terminology, imposter syndrome. And after that, did my research, looked it up a lot, read books on it, and started doing the work. And I've created a process now that I can help, that others can follow so that they can do the work too. Okay.
So I wanted to ask you this before we go into the process. Is the idea of imposter syndrome, or I would always say this, I still have this. As a Filipino American, I walk into the room and I'm like, yeah, I'm crashing the party again, and I definitely remember almost being embarrassed at one point.
Yes.
Where I was like, crap, man, like I just wish I didn't stick out like a sore thumb. And that was more like a light that was shining on me, right? It was like a spotlight that I felt. So that might, whether or not it was true, it was something that I internally felt. Do you think that's something that when you think about little Michelle Gomez, right? Do children have things like imposter syndrome? Like, how do we acquire that?
So studies show that imposter syndrome sufferers, which, for just to define it in a little bit, a little more understandable terms, imposter syndrome, or also known as the imposter experience, is a behavioral phenomenon where high achievers have a difficult time internalizing their success. They actually excuse it away. They make excuses. They make they justify other reasons why they're successful, rather than just on their own merit and their own talent. Their own brilliance. It's like, oh, I got the job because they had to meet their diversity numbers, or I got the job because I'm cute, or I got the job because I'm young, or, or whatever, I worked the hardest. That's how I got it. It's not like you're just not innately amazing, So, with that understanding, when people tend to dismiss their successes as like, I didn't really earn it. This is a mistake. I don't belong here, And what I have found in my research is that a large portion of imposter syndrome sufferers actually had a common thread of some of the things that happened in their childhood. So they either came from broken homes, or there was a difference in messaging of the parenting. So like the parenting could be, you're being told one thing, but you're seeing another. So there is a disconnect in the messaging that you're receiving as a child, right? Like they might tell you it's wrong for you to steal, but if you catch your parents stealing, they think you're not watching, but you see them walking into the grocery store and taking an apple, that qualifies as stealing. So the messaging, there's a disconnect there.
So it's like an integrity thing.
Correct. Yeah. There's that. And then trauma. So children who have witnessed trauma, were abused and things like that. And so that's a common thread of imposter syndrome, because when you learn early on as a child that there's things that disqualify your value because of what you were a part of, what you saw, what you fell victim to, the disconnect in the messaging you received, an absent parent, it's difficult to really hone your worth, your brilliance, your talent, that even if you spent all these years in school, so many years experience, your stuff, you're an expert, but it's difficult to really sit in that wholeheartedly because you're constantly looking for validation from the outside world, the validation that maybe you were seeking as a child. And so that's why it's important that we do this work today, especially for imposter syndrome sufferers like myself who are parents, because now we have a responsibility to do better for our offspring.
Oh, that is so money. And I think a couple things in terms of you bringing up the idea of trauma. I can see trauma not only being one, like a trauma that hits you super hard, but also a trauma like microaggressions, feeling every single day, like maybe a teacher being dismissive of you versus the rest of the class, or growing up in a certain value system. Like, for example, immigrant parents have value systems that are non-Western sometimes. And then you see value systems on the TV, like on television shows, and you're like, oh my God, that's not me. And I can see that sort of creating that idea to be validated, for your values to be validated. Okay.
Absolutely. There's cultural implications in the imposter experience as well. Dr. Valerie Young, she's one of the leading experts in this topic. She wrote a book called Secret Thoughts of Successful Women. And she actually gave me an advanced praise blurb in my book. So if you're watching, Dr. Valerie, thank you so much. You're a rock star. I love you. But
Hi,
even
Dr. Young.
even she has in her book. Yes, yes, she's great. But even in her book, she talks about this, the general, the not the generational, but the cultural implications of being a minority, or just the messaging you're receiving. Because, and I've seen it with some of the people that I've spoken to, where their families are either, the immigrant parents, they're either like, go for it, do it, because, I worked hard out in the farm, or down in the basement and cleaning houses so that you can go out and be great. So do it. There's that. And then there's other families dynamics where it's like, don't dream too big. We don't go that far in our family. We just don't want your heart to get broken. We don't want you to be disappointed. So they're like kind of dream squashers at times. So then if you're the imposter syndrome struggler and you actually get there because of the messaging that you've been given, it's the reason why you question yourself. It's well, do I really belong here? Because I was told all my life not to dream this big.
That is so interesting. So I'm going to share something that I haven't shared with anybody, because I'm thinking about a story, and you can tell me if this is imposter syndrome or just me being a goofball about this. But I remember being a freshman in college, and a lot of people think that like I'm not like this when the camera is off, and whether or not you think I am or not, it doesn't matter. But I'm kind of a big goofball. I'm more of an introvert. But I remember getting to know my freshman hall, and I was goofing around. I was being dorky with them and stuff. And I remember someone walking by me and going, "Fucking affirmative action." And I remember being like, "What?" Like. And I remember that set me off so much that I didn't feel like I belonged in that college anymore for a while. Is that kind of an imposter syndrome that was caused, or was like, is that?
Well, I think that's an experience of intolerance that you were a part of. Yeah, definitely some ignorance, a little sprinkle of ignorance there. But the crazy part is no one can make you feel the imposter syndrome. It's something that comes from you. It's a messaging that comes from you. Somebody could make a comment or throw some shade your way that will tap into that insecurity. It will touch on it. You're like, oh, and it kind of reminds you that it's there, because I kind of allude imposter syndrome to an allergy. It never really goes away. But you just have to know your triggers, right? Like I love animals, but I'm allergic to pet dander. I'm only allowed to have hypoallergenic pets, but I love kittens. I love huskies and German shepherds, and I love all those guys. And when I know I'm going to be around them, I will be proactive and I'll take my Allegra medication so that I can enjoy the kitties and I can play with the puppies and not have that problem, right? So when you understand your imposter syndrome competency, and there's 5 types, and in my book, I coined the term a Yukon, your unique cocktail of needs. When you understand the 5 competency types, and usually people are about 2 to 3 out of the 5, they'll say, ooh, I'm 2 to 3 of those. And that's your Yukon, right? When you understand what your Yukon is, then you can understand your triggers. Like what triggers this experience in you, these thoughts, so that you can reframe your thought pattern when you know you're going to be amidst that situation. Like I'll give you an example. I can sometimes be triggered when I know I'm going to go to a networking event, because I already know 3 truths. Number 1, there's going to be more men than women, because, I'm still heavily involved in the logistics and transportation industry. That industry has done so much for me. It's hard for me to walk away from it completely. Plus, it's kind of like the mafia. Like once you're in, it's hard to get out. but I know, number 1, I'm already going to be outnumbered from men to women. Number 2, because of my age, there's also an implication of I don't know my stuff. I got to really prove who I am. And number 3, there's unfortunately some of the thought patterns that I carry with myself, and it's a part of I'll just be very honest, it's a part of my imposter syndrome Yukon. But a lot of times I get attention that I'm thinking I'm getting because of my work ethic, because I've done so much work in this industry, and I've really made a name for myself, and I've really trajected a large amount of miles in my career in the short life that I've had. I'm only 37, and I'm thinking I'm going to get, this person's coming to talk to me because they're like, wow, this girl knows her stuff, man. I'm going to talk to her. And then sometimes you get the unwanted, well, what are you doing later?
Yeah.
So are you married? And so there's a lot of so it's difficult. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm only worthy of being a part of this networking event because of the way I look. Yep. And so the imposter syndrome starts to be, like, oh, see, you're really only here because of the way you look. Like, don't think it's because you're brilliant and because of all the hard work you've had. Let's be real here. You're here because you're cute. That kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yowzers.
And so, I'm just being honest. That's that's the kind of stuff. And so when you understand your triggers, you have to really focus on, okay, I need to reframe my thought pattern and deal with that stuff before I get to the networking event, because I don't want those thoughts to be a part of my experience. I would like to show up to this networking event and connect with everyone without fear, without apprehension, and let them see me for me and what I have to offer and not the exterior.
I love that idea of acknowledgement of triggers, because what you're getting at is a deep dive of self-awareness.
Yes.
And so much of the behavior change models, or so many behavior change models that we see nowadays, start at a place of awareness and knowing those, what you call triggers. I love the ideas of triggers. And I want to also talk about the sort of the Yukons. I want you to know that people are picking up what you're throwing down. Wowie! Faith Clark says, I did and still do that. Justify success by external factors. Don't we all, Faith? Somehow it's like I'm treating myself like the them. I'm in the out group. So much social psychology going on there, Faith. I hope you're writing that into your dissertation right now. Want to throw out Vicky. Hi, Marc and Michelle. Love the topic. Great information about the triggers. Smiley face. She's loving it. Oh, you're getting a heart. Gary's got a question. So basically, are these all self-generated insecurities?
It's certainly something that and we haven't gone into the competencies yet, but once you understand the competencies, then it's less of an insecurity, more of a fear, because it's a fear-based shame. So it does tap on an insecurity because you feel your competency isn't strong enough, and so you experience fear of being found out, like you're a fraud, or you're some sort of phony amongst all these real deals walking around. And so there's this constant fear of being found out as this fraud, but no one else thinks it. It's just you, And so the 5 competency types, there's I don't know if we have time to go through them, but
let's do it.
Okay. So the first is, and it's what you deem competent. When you look at somebody and you see what they're doing, you're like, oh, wow, that person's competent because they exhibit one of these 5 behaviors. So the first one is the perfectionist. So as the perfectionist, you tend to focus on how something is done. So you have an extremely high expectation of yourself, and you tend to set the bar crazy high. And when you do not achieve your goal to that high level of expectation that you set for yourself, you're likely to experience harsh inner criticism and shame. And unfortunately for the perfectionist, this shame can take days to shake off. It could just sit with you for a while. So if you're the perfectionist, if you guys are listening and you're one of these, feel free to put a little hand up like, yep, that's me. But the perfectionist, so it has to be like a 98% on your paper you won't be happy with. It has to be 100 or else it wasn't worth it. Yes. It's that kind of thing. The natural genius. So as a natural genius, you expect to have high natural abilities, just an easy flow of intelligence that would result in being able to approach pretty much any task or goal with the utmost of ease. If the task doesn't seem easy for you, the assumption is that you're not cut out to do this. It's just not for you. So you beat yourself up for not being this naturally inclined person, and you experience shame. And I find this with a lot of people that are getting into the entrepreneurial world. They like, if they're not making 6 figures the first 3 months, it's like, oh, I'm not cut out for this. I'm just going to go back. Yes. It's like, it takes time, just because you're not natural to this doesn't mean you can't learn it. Doesn't mean you can't grow. Maybe the journey is supposed to teach you something, but this is the natural genius. They shame themselves for not just being perfect at it out the gate. And
I absolutely love that. I absolutely
yeah.
love that.
And I finally see that socially as well. The natural genius. I've actually been in the past been one. You can ask my friends. We've been on vacation together, and they want to play spades. They want to play dominoes. They want to, they want to play board games or card games. And I wasn't comfortable playing because I didn't want to play unless I was going to win. I wanted to be the natural genius. I was like, if I'm not going to win, I don't want to play. Come on, Michelle, play. Sit down. We'll teach you. No, I don't want to play. It's just silly. It's silly. It's like, just have fun. So that's the natural genius.
And then you go back to your room and you're like, how to win at spades every time. You Google it and then come back. I'm ready to play.
Okay, I'm ready.
No, that's so interesting because so many of the folks, including myself, including the Golden Mike, when it started, my coach had told me, do not create an indicator of success until you've done something for like 180 days straight. Right. And I think Malcolm Gladwell says the same thing. Don't really think about your success measures until you've done something for like a couple thousand hours.
Wow. That's actually great advice.
But I love how it's sort of blending with things, because I never thought about this typology of this phoniness, this fear of being found out, that comes into play. Gary's feeling it. Yup. That's all Gary's got to say is, yup, love the sunflower. Never change it, Gary. Allison just dropped in. My fear of being found out. We are our strongest and often worst critics. Our Rotten Tomato rating is usually the lowest percent. Robin, me too. Robin just raised her hand. Good to see you, Robin.
Yeah. So it's what you deem competent, right? So if you're the perfectionist, then you look at somebody doing everything perfectly, 100% gold, you're a gold star junkie, then that's the perfectionist. That's what you deem competent. So the natural genius is the same thing. When they see someone just doing something completely natural and with ease, and they're successful right out the gate without much effort, like, wow, that's competency right there. The third one is the expert. So if you're the expert, you believe that true competency is possessing as much knowledge and skill as possible. Just retention of information and the ability to execute all forms of mastery. You seek out all form of credentials or experience to drive your actions. So you're that. I call this competency thriving, never arriving. Always thriving, always like you feel that you'll just never learn enough. And what happens with the expert is if you have to go back and read that book again, or you struggle to master something new the first time, or are not constantly seeking new forms of training or certification, you tend to feel stagnant, impotent, and you're shrouded in shame. So this expert, it's like always learning, never just, staying in a place like, okay, now I'm just going to grow an expertise right here. It's like, nope, always being an expert at everything. Got to keep going, got to keep striving. These are the people that keep getting multiple bachelor's, multiple, master's degrees. Because, if they're not certified in one thing, they're getting certification in another. It's just, they just never feel like they're worthy of the job that they have. So they feel that consistent learning is the way to go.
Total trigger alert right now.
Yes.
Total trigger alert. So this is ringing a major bell with me right now, because I just started the show by saying I do positive psychology. And I'm like, until I go to University of Pennsylvania, like and get the master's with Martin Seligman, and pay that $300,000, like I'm never actually going to be that full on positive psychologist. So don't introduce yourself like that, Cordone. So I feel like that's a major thing that pops up, and so many people are like, I don't want to write that. I don't want to write that book until I get that PhD, or I don't want to get this until I get my master's, or I don't want to go out and do this until I get this certification. Of course, those things are important, but like continually moving forward without mastering it, you're so right. Like without really practicing it. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So and I'll get you down to the last two. So the last two is the rugged individualist, also known as the soloist. But your thought is that true competence is in the person who can approach a task or goal all on your own. No help, assistance, or aid of any kind. The thought behind this competency is that if you really were to ask for help, asking for would sort of solidify the fact that you're an imposter, that you're a phony, that you're a fraud. Like clearly you don't belong here if you need help. And so feeling that you need help then invites shame into the experience.
Oh.
So that's the rugged individualist. And these people struggle to work in a team environment because they feel that they don't ask for help. And in fact, I've actually had the opportunity to work with a rugged individualist that would frame the question in the form of like, oh, the team needs to know this, when it was really they needed, because they were so ashamed to say, hey, I'm kind of unclear about something, or I need some help in this area. Do you think you can sit with me for a little bit? And just that invites shame. The fact that they even have to ask for it. Yeah. So that's the competency. And then the last one is, it has three terms. It's the superwoman or the superman or the super student. And if you actually look up a recent, well, not recent, maybe 2 years ago, a research that they did at Harvard Business School, a large portion of Harvard graduate school students feel that they got into the program by accident. Like their application wasn't thoroughly reviewed. They somehow slipped under the radar. So they're actually imposter syndrome sufferers are pretty prevalent in the grad school market. So that's why they coined the term super student for those guys. But the superwoman, superman, or super student, your belief is that you should be able to fulfill all your duties masterfully, all of them. So, and for women, this is really hard because it's wife, mother, sister, daughter, friend, employee, student. Oh, and then make time to be at the gym and look good while you're doing it. I mean, there's just so much, right? And so for the men, it could be if they're doing multiple things, especially nowadays, men are being more actively engaged at home as the gender roles are starting to neutralize in our day and age. And so you have men that want to do well at work, but they also want to do well at home. And this is where they kind of overcompensate with their time. And so basically this person wants to be able to juggle it all and make it look easy. Because that's what you consider as competent. It's what drives your idea of that person being a competent individual. If you're not handling your business awesomely in all of your hats that you wear, then clearly you're a fraud, and in comes the shame. So basically, it's a fear-based shame that shows up through this because this is the internal monologue that's going on. And I find that the women who struggle with the superwoman competency, yeah, it's a lot. It's keeping the house clean. It's cooking the meals on time, making sure you remember all of the events on your kids' calendars. Oh, and being sure you meet all your deadlines at work and keep your husband happy and make time for happy hour with your girlfriends. And try to find sleep in between all in all. It's a lot. And so that's why this one is so prevalent. And the superwoman, superman usually is the first person in the office and the last one to leave because they feel like that's how they show their value. They struggle with just being great, you're good at this. Clearly you were hired to do this job because people believed in you. They believe in your experience and your talent, but they feel, oh yeah, if I need to be the first one in and the last one out just to show how dedicated I am because I'm clearly a fraud. So if I'm not here for 10, 12 hours, then I'm not worth the position.
Wow. So perfectionist, natural genius, the expert, the soloist, and the superhuman. Right. All five of those we have in different percentages, which make our cocktail. And so okay, gotcha. Now, as we go, sort of move forward in life, do those percentages change, or do they stay relatively the same for each of us, and the triggers, the same triggers keep reoccurring?
So as long as this is where the work needs to be done, because if you do the work to reframe your thought pattern, I think from what I understand, when you reframe your thought pattern as it comes with maturity, you start to really focus on the things that are going to make your Yukon feel like it's okay to just stand in your brilliance. Then these triggers will have less and less of an impact in your experience. You can start to see it coming a mile away. And say, okay, I know better than to let myself fall into that thought pattern today because I've been here before and I've done the work. And that, that's part of the work that I do in my career coaching program is we do a lot of the mental and emotional thought work first before we even get into the mechanics of taking the leap toward the career that you want or going for that position or starting that business, let's deal with this first right here. And then we can move forward. But without checking that first, everything else doesn't matter.
Yep. I could see trying to take action too early as almost increasing the feeling of being a fraud. Like if you don't coach the internal part first, and then the external stuff is all feeling like you're a fraud still.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that you start with awareness and work folks through it. Now, with these 5 competencies, how do these things show up professionally and personally for us?
Okay, so here's how they show up personally. I mean, it'll certainly impact how you come to work. I mean, imagine coming to work with this constant fear of being like found out, you know, and all the overcompensating that you do to try to show like, see, I belong here. See, yep, totally belong here, you know. And so that a lot of times it requires it's burnout, which is what I was experiencing 3 years ago. You're overworking, you're never stop. You feel like rest and self-care it's a waste of time. That's not making me any money. That's not going to keep my livelihood going. So I can't do that right now. And so they overwork themselves to the bone, and requiring that amount of validation at work is draining on your boss. Imagine if you're the boss and you have somebody who constantly comes in your office. It's like, Mark, is this okay? Mark, I'm about to make this decision. Are you okay with it? I'm going to make this change. Is it cool? Like, it's just like, okay, you're the manager. I hired you to make these decisions. Go for it. Like, you know, you have my full blessing. But when someone who has the ability to make strong, you know, good decisions requires that amount of validation, it's exhausting on their up-level management. Number 2 is it does actually impact their decision-making, because they may be afraid to voice an opinion, to take a risk, you know, to lead a charge, because they don't want to be tied to the failure. If this fails, you know, I don't want my name tied to it, because I'm already feeling like I don't belong here. Like, I'm totally a fraud. So if I would hate to have my name tied to this. So the creativity and the impact that you can have in your work, in your workforce, the team that you're leading, in your position is minimized because of this fear of being tied to the shame of this failure, right? And number 3 is the people that you're supposed to lead. They're not going to want to follow you if you have no self-confidence and giving yourself permission to make a mistake. And this is why men who are imposter sufferers deal with it a little bit better, because men have historically been able to give themselves more of a, you know, grace. Like, I'm allowed to make a mistake, aren't I? I'm a human being. It's okay. If I make a mistake at work, I'll own it. Okay, it was a mistake. Duly noted. I won't do that again. A woman, she will punish herself for the rest of the week, and we'll carry it home, and it'll be up, because it's a part of what we do. We value ourselves as women by what we can do, our output. Look at my kids. My kids they're smart. They're well dressed. They got good grades. Look at my husband. He's happy. My house is clean. So if all of this is a representation of how we judge ourselves as women. So when we take that to work, you know, it shows up on all those ways, and just your up-level management, your decision-making, and your ability to lead. And that's why I work on this so much, because I've seen from personal experience how a woman thrives when she have you heard that phrase, happy wife, happy life, right?
Yeah.
When a woman feels secure in herself, in her marriage, in her home, in her position as a wife, mother, daughter, she just shows up with such grace and beauty, and her brilliance radiates, like her ideas, her creativity, and what she touches and how she does it. She's present in everything. Imagine taking that level of beauty into work. Now you're leading with the same charge, like you're secure in your role. You understand what you're here to do. You don't need people to validate you. You're just here to sprinkle your level of your fairy dust of brilliance. And when you show up with that level of authenticity and worthiness, just like a house and a marriage thrives, your business will thrive. Your bottom line will be great. Turnover would be minimized. Your department morale would be, it's just, there's something about someone showing up and stepping into their role from a place of authentic worthiness. Mm-hmm. And that's why I call it Own Your Brilliance.
Love it. Love it. And from a positive psych perspective, there are a whole lot of empirical studies out there that show that coming in from a place of feeling fulfilled and being happy on a regular basis with your work does exponentially increase your outputs. And whether or not you judge yourself based totally on outputs, or you judge your, you look at things from a standpoint of process and outputs, or just basically process, that's a big deal to be able to come in and feel like you're at full capacity with your functioning,
Yes.
wherever you're
that.
at.
I love that. Full capacity of your functioning. I'm going to write that down. I love that.
So why do you talked about this a little bit? Your coaching program talks about why it's important for us to work through this. Talk about the importance and sort of the need for us to continually do this work. I'm thinking that this is not a linear path that we take when it comes to, you're going to discover your trigger and then it's over. It's kind of a feedback loop where you're going to constantly get better and grow. But what does that look like? And talk about that process.
What it looks like is we kind of look at your lifestyle, where you are now, who you're surrounding yourself with, because we have to make sure that while you're in transition, you are not being exposed to negative messaging. And so I'll give you an example. I had a client that I was working with who had been at his job for 24 years and, admitted that after, 3 years ago was when he was really unhappy. He's like, I probably should have left 3 years ago, but I didn't. I talked myself out of saying, no one else is going to hire me. I'm just going to stay here, And so after 24 years, they made the decision for him. And so here he was, right?
Pushed him out of the nest.
Right. But when you've been at a company for 24 years, you have your old coworkers calling you and giving you all the gossip and, it's been, everything's going to crap since you've left and all the negative. And I'm like, this isn't helping you. You're in transition. You need to limit your time, your conversations with these people right now, because we're reframing your thought pattern here. And this is not conducive to that growth. So we talk about that kind of thing, what the environment needs to be. We talk about the importance of a morning routine that is regular ingestion of positive thought pattern messaging, the importance of sleep, self-care, things like that. But once we develop the Yukon and we understand your triggers, we understand the messaging that's going to be required for that person to change those thought patterns. Like, I'll give you an example. If you're the perfectionist, right? And if you only want gold stars, has to be 100% every time, then we have to change it a little bit. It's like, okay, you know what? A 95 is still pretty good. Don't beat yourself up. 95 is actually, it's pretty strong. It's okay. Don't devalue all the hard work you put in just because you didn't get 100, So we do some thought messaging and then we get into the mechanics, like where do you want to go? Where you are in your career today and where are you trying to get to? And if it means a shift, a pivot, starting a side hustle, what is it, to get you to where you got to go? And we do the mechanics from there. Like, we look at your resume, we look at your experience, interviewing tactics, how to find a mentor, all that stuff.
That's where you start working on the action steps external that are in alliance, in concordance with the internal.
Right. We just got to work on this first. I wouldn't send someone out into the lion's den. That isn't.
You got this. Now just do the actions. Yeah. So I think I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the dangers of not doing this work and being like, imposter syndrome is just something I'll always experience. You might have brought it up when you were talking about that this is draining. It hinders your decisions. Your leadership diminishes. But what happens long-term wise? Like, if you continue to not address some sort of lingering issues of fear of being, fear-based shame, basically.
You're foreboding a lot of things. You're basically relinquishing a lot of things, like joy. If you just can't experience joy in everything you do you really want to continue that way? For like the super person we talked, the very last competency, for someone who has been a corporate burnout, I can tell you it's unsustainable. Your health will tell you that you need to slow down. And so you need to check this and check it now. If you fall into the super woman, superman, super student competency, please know that you want to address this before your health tells you it's time to address it. Because also a statistic that I hadn't shared about that particular competency, it has been found that the person who struggle, the super woman, superman, super student competency type, they struggle with their marriages. Their marriages could fall apart because so much time is spent at work and on being perfect and being good at everything that you don't spend adequate time on your home life. So your marriage could struggle, your parenting can struggle, but most of all, your health. I mean, I've had my hair fall out. I've broken out in hives, lost sleep, migraines, just unhealthy living just to deal, you know? I mean, this is why I actually did a paper on this when I was still working on my MBA, but about the statistics of corporate executives who abuse drugs and alcohol on a regular basis just to deal. And so all of that is temporary, but it's not sustainable. Eventually, your bodies have a great way of communicating to you, like you need to slow down and you need to stop because your marriage is still here. Your kids are growing up every day. These are things that you need to focus on yourself. Your body needs your attention. And so those are some of the dangers. It's the foreboding of joy. It's the health and family implications that could show up. But most importantly, you were created on this earth to do something wonderful, do something great. I have this idea that I really agree with by author Elizabeth Gilbert in her book, Big Magic. She talks about how ideas and creativity find you because they trust you to manifest them, you know? And so if you don't manifest them, they will find someone else. And it'll be manifested through somebody else who put in the time and energy. And so when an idea or a creative moment comes to you to start something great, it's because it's been entrusted to you to manifest it. And I'm a Christian. I believe that God trusts us with these ideas and says, okay, go. You know, I'm going to help you. You got this, you know? And so when we let our fears shadow out or drown out all the beautiful idea that's come to us and the God-given talent and ability to go out and do it, you are doing a disservice, not just to yourself, but to the world, because the people that you were put on this earth to impact are now sitting there waiting for somebody else because we let fear win. We let shame take over. And so that's why I feel so strongly about this work. That's why I call it Own Your Brilliance, because when you own your brilliance and you take care of this stuff, your life will experience such a tremendous amount of joy and peace, but you get to do that for somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm definitely hearing that, like, not only is it sort of a syndrome or a process that we go through, but it's also something that if not addressed, it's going to be vexing to your spirituality, your physical, your intellectual, your relational, your emotional components, and possibly hold you back from serving the greater good.
Absolutely.
The larger folk. That's my closing line. I don't know how I'm going to close the show now, but
the 20-year-old.
Yeah. So that's actually what I did want to ask you, right? So you're young. You're a youngin', right? 37 years old. Let's go back and let's meet Michelle, sort of mid youngin', right? She's 20 years old. What is it that you would tell your 20-year-old self?
I would tell her that it's going to be much more okay than she thinks, because she thinks that being happy is going to be like right here. Like, okay, then if I get here, I'll be good. And I would tell her, like, girlfriend, you don't even know. You don't even know. Like, I would tell her 80 to 90% of the things that you're afraid of aren't even going to happen. So sit down and relax. It's going to be okay. You know, regardless, you're going to be fine. It's going to be okay.
You would tell your younger self to sit down.
Sit down, girl. It's all right.
Yuri's like, yay, Michelle. So she's feeling you. So I wanted to ask you this then. 30, you're 37, right? Let's say that 90-year-old Michelle shows up. What would 90-year-old Michelle say to 37-year-old Michelle right now?
90-year-old Michelle will tell 37-year-old Michelle that she's grateful that she stood out and did something that was not really normal for our family. Like nobody, nobody's done this before. And I'm proud of you, because this is, if you've read my book, one of the biggest things that I struggled with in my imposter experience is just feeling like nobody was proud of me. And so when you feel that no one's proud of you, you feel like an imposter. You feel like, well, then what am I doing? Everyone else thinks I'm great, but the people that I care about and love the most seem to be distracted and aren't seeing what I'm doing, and they don't seem to care, And so to hear my 90-year-old self tell me, I'm so proud of you. I just want you to know everything you did to change the game, because that's kind of like my hashtag. I changed the game everywhere I go. When I was still in the logistics industry, in my prior job, I was the first female Latina to hold the position as a regional transportation manager. Hashtag changing the game, and then I was the first in my family to get a bachelor's, the first in my family to get an MBA, the first in my family to write a book. So I've been the game changer. And on a personal level, my husband and I both come from a long line of broken homes. And we just decided when we got married that, nope, that's not going to be the reality for our kids. So we're going to do whatever we got to do to change the game. And we treat it like a bit, I joke about it all the time that this is Gomez Incorporated. He's the CEO, I'm the CFO, and we got our little, GRU minions that are with us and are depending on us. But every day we show up with the idea that whatever we have to do to change the game so that the generation behind us has a different experience. I would love for my kids to grow up feeling like, yeah, I can get a master's degree. Of course I can write a book. I saw my mom do it. She's made it look easy. I can do it. There's the roadblock is no longer there. So my 90-year-old self would tell my 37-year-old self, without fear of feeling boastful or arrogant, I am so proud of you. You deserve everything that you've worked so hard for. And those girls, they're going to do such amazing things because you made it okay to dream.
Oh my God, I'm tempted to give your 90-year-old self a golden mic now. But before that, I wanted to throw this out there. We threw a lot at you this episode. A lot of competencies, a lot of data that Michelle has put together for us. The book is being gifted to us, courtesy of Michelle. Own Your Brilliance. We messed it up during the pre-show, so I want to make sure that I'm saying it right. Own Your Brilliance. Is this right, that you're going to gift it to us?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm also seeing here free assessment and strategy call. So you're also not only gifting us with your book, your knowledge, your research, but your time as well. What do we get with the strategy call?
Well, once you complete the assessment, we can actually schedule a 30-minute free strategy call so we can develop your Yukon. And once you know your Yukon, then we can see why this Yukon has gotten in the way from point A to point B, because clearly you want to do something more in your career or in your life. So what is this Yukon? How is it showing up? So this is what we do. We strategize of how to overcome that and where you would want to go, because without understanding what your North Star is, it's really hard to develop a roadmap after that. So I help with a free 30-minute strategy.
Wait, so do we get part of the cocktail? Like, is that what you're talking about? Look at the eyebrows. I love it. Gomez Inc. showing up. She shows up for us, so make sure that you show up for Michelle. This is amazing. When folks gift us time, you can't replace that with anything else. So Michelle, I want to thank you for not only gifting us with the time for the assessments. You gave us an hour of your time. I know that you're hustling. I know that you're spending a lot of time with your family. We jumped on literally like 90 seconds before the call. I love you already. We gotta have you back.
I would love to.
Now this is the thing. I don't know if you've seen the end of the shows, but no. This is why the show is called The Golden Mic Live. So, okay. Michelle, I want you to imagine that a golden mic is descending from your ceiling now. and it's coming to a stop in front of you. Yeah, it's a beautiful golden mic, and it's not gold plated. It's totally gold.
Okay.
And now the golden mic translates into every language all across the world, and it will be live for the world to hear whatever it is that you want to say for 2 minutes. So Michelle Gomez, your golden mic is live now.
Okay. 2 minutes? Okay. I need you to know that you matter. I need you to know that you were not here by accident or by chance. You were created to be here to do something great. And it is my job to help you see your brilliance so that you can do just that. Anything that anyone has ever said to you that let you believe that you were less than who you are is a lie. I'm here to show you and walk you towards the door of truth. Walk with me, take this journey, and let's find out what would happen to this world if you just owned your brilliance. Thank you.
Okay, Michelle. So we're going to turn the golden mic off. I want you to take that golden mic in your hands. I want you to feel how cool it is. I want you to feel how heavy that gold is. Then I want you to smash that golden mic because you just crushed it. You just crushed it, Gomez.
It wasn't 2 minutes, but it was sincere and from the heart.
That's all you need is just one direct punch, knockout blow to the world. Michelle Gomez, own your brilliance. Freaking fantastic. I agree. Allison Prophet, bringing tears to my eyes. What a great message. What a great person. I want to thank you for coming on the show. My name is Marc Cordone. It's Thursday, which means this. We are turning off the golden mic for the weekend so you can spend time with your family doing the things that matter. We do we do a lot of social media, but it's for social good. Now go out there and do your thing. We're coming back at you next week. It's a full week. I can't wait for you to see the guests. Michelle, you are now a part of the fraternity and sorority of golden micers. But I got one last question for everybody. And it's this. If you're feeling great and living in your full fulfillment, what is your responsibility to the greater good? I'm Marc Cordone. This is Michelle Gomez. And this has been the Golden Mic episode 53, y'all. Have a great weekend.